My name is Tony Wilder and this is Beginning Pitching. And this video is going to be about some basically very simple points. They're very important and they're relevant to what you're doing on the mound, and you want to pay attention to what they are. First of all, there's the behavior of what you're doing or what another pitcher is doing. That's what you can observe. That's what you can see. And behavior, no matter how good it looks, can be very, very deceiving in what's really going on as far as the execution of throwing the ball over the plate. Then there's the mechanics. The mechanics are the principles that you use to guide yourself through the execution so that you can learn to throw the ball properly. Then there's the physics. The physics cannot be denied. The physics are the single most important aspect of everything that you do on the field, no matter what you do. And to explain the physics in the simplest form, you know that if you throw the ball up in the air, it's going to come down because gravity is part of physics, and that ball is going to come to the ground. You also know that you have a certain level of slowdown in the ball, and it's called entropy. That's a fancy word for it, but the facts of the matter are is the farther the ball flies, every 5.5 feet it will slow down 1 mile an hour. Now, these aspects of what go into pitching, if you understand them, if you understand the behavior, if you understand the mechanics, and you understand the physics, you're going to be able to take command of what this process is a lot quicker. The behavior, the observable part of what you're doing, is going to be something the coach will see. It's going to be something that the other team members will see. It'll be what the people in the stands see. And it's just a natural part of what goes on the field. It's a part of every game. We observe the behavior of the players on the field. Now, the mechanics, the principle of what it is you're doing when you're pitching the ball, the mechanics are an idea that you have in your head. The mechanics are not the physics, and the mechanics are not the behavior. The mechanics are a set of principles. And when you're on the field and you're studying to throw the ball over the plate, you're using the mechanics, implementing various types of aspects of what it is that you're doing to get that ball to go where you want it to go. And in the case of what we're doing here, pitching a ball over the plate, your mechanics consist primarily of force that you have in your arm to get the ball to go where you want it to go. And of course, levers are a very large part of this. The leverage of the hip, for instance, the leverage of the of this arm, okay, the leverage of the shoulder, bringing the ball into play, okay. These are all the various aspects, the principles that you're implementing on the field to bring about a new and more advanced style of behavior. Then there's the physics. You will never be able to disobey what the physics are. The physics are that the ball is going to do what it's going to do according to how heavy it is, what state the field is in, how hard the wind is blowing, whether the batter is lefty or righty, how hard you're really throwing, how fast you can really launch the ball off the mound. The physics are immutable. They do not change. They will always be the same. As long as you can implement the mechanics, you will be taking command of as much of the physics as you possibly can. Now, knowing these few simple facts, just these simple things, will help you towards an excellent execution. It'll help you towards getting the ball to go exactly where you want it to go, when you want it to go there, and how you want it to go there. Whether you're throwing a knuckleball or a fastball or a curve, a changeup, it doesn't matter. And we all know that the style of ball that you throw, whatever it's going to be, is going to, the way you throw it is a measure of what the physics will tell you can occur. Now, that being covered, that note covered, I'm going to cover another aspect of what happens on the field when you are throwing the ball. It's very important that when you are practicing, whatever it is that you're doing on the field that day, you keep a record of what it is that you're doing. Now, that means you keep a log. Now, these 3 little books I bought for $1 at the dollar store couldn't be any more inexpensive, couldn't be any smaller. I can put that right in my pocket. Bingo. It goes in there. I pull it out. At the end of my practice session, usually every 30 shots, I'll go ahead and mark down what I put in the target and how many I shot. In other words, if 10 went in the target and I fired 30 balls, I'll mark down 30 and I'll mark down 10. That's how I do it. Maybe you have a different idea of what you would like to do. I will say that I will track the style of ball that I'm throwing too. If I'm throwing it Sandy Koufax style, my favorite method of throwing the ball, it's going to be SK, Sandy Koufax. That's the style I'm throwing. If I'm throwing a knuckleball, I'll put KN. That marks the type of ball that I threw in that practice session. If I'm throwing a fastball, I put FB. That's the way you track what you're doing. When you keep accurate records and you know what's happening, it's much easier for you to understand what the nature is of what it is that you're trying to pull out of yourself. If you don't know where you're at in the course of going through this is the preseason right now. I'm in the preseason, okay? We'll be in the part of the tryouts and all that good stuff, the preseason, real shortly here. I want to be ready. I know where I'm at because I have this little book right here that tells me where I'm at. When you have something that pops up in your experience, playing on the field, whatever it is, okay, it might be that something of this nature, although it's easy to work with, and believe me, this really is. You got to carry a pen and you carry this and that's it. Maybe you want something a little bigger, I don't know. But this is a larger journal that I use. And this journal is what I record the larger aspects in. For instance, when I hit pitch 9,200, all of a sudden my entire technique went for a giant size advanced change. I'm not going to explain it right now. It's a little bit heavy to go into. We want to talk about basically keeping journals. This is very important for you knowing where you're at and what you're doing. With this, you can write down a couple of pages of what it is that happened. If you have to, you don't have this and you have only your small journal, record the basic aspects of what it is that took place. Whether it's the way your arm is changing, how it's going, maybe it's a different temperature outside, and because that temperature is different, you threw differently. Maybe you threw a lot better because the temperature was different. Almost everything will affect how you throw the ball. Almost everything will affect how the game proceeds. And of course, if you've been a player, you've seen all this already. You've seen a lot of these things. But of course, the most important point we want to cover here is make sure you keep a record. Because if you do, you're never going to be standing, in the background going, I threw this many balls last week. You know what you threw. You know what you haven't thrown. You know what you haven't practiced. You know you haven't thrown your curveball. You know you haven't thrown your knuckleball. Or you know that you have. When things are not going the way you want on the mound, you'll be able to refer back to your manual. You'll be able to look at it and say, wow, I didn't practice this. Or, yes, I did practice this. And nothing will be a mystery to you. And you do not want anything to be a mystery. The other aspect of this that you want to take into consideration also is that I mean, usually in most cases, there's a coach or an assistant coach or somebody who's going to keep records. Of course, they keep a record of the game. They're going to do that. But you can't leave it up to them to keep a record of what you're doing individually. It's just doesn't really work very well for a couple of reasons. Number one, you have to ask them what you did. Why should you ask somebody else what you're doing? Why should you ask someone else what you did on the field? You want to know what you did on the field. You want to be sure of what it is that you practiced. This does not need to be something that you show anybody else, okay? This is a private record that you keep for yourself. No one else has to look at it. You want to show it to somebody, that's fine. You want to show the coach, that's fine. You know, maybe he wants proof of what you did. There's no telling. You know, there's any one number of things that can happen. But if you don't have this, if you don't have a record of what you did, then you don't know. It's like being in the dark. So keep a record, keep a journal. When significant things happen in the field, write them all down. Other players pop in, they do something that benefits you amazingly or takes away from what you're trying to do. Record what that is so that you know how to deal with it in the future. On that note, this is Tony Wilder. This is Beginning Pitching. Thank you very much.